Hello and welcome to Otherworld Connections. I'm your host, Gino, and I've got a very special guest today who I met in 2019, and he was kind enough to connect with me through, through various channels, based off my work, The Secret Kindergarten, which works on trying to find ways to connect and raise and educate young children, to create a free world, a world without rulers and a world without slaves, and to just pick up on things that children need and share those with people based on my work as an early childhood educator and my work studying natural law and spirituality and so on and so forth. And then all these years later, I've ended up down a rabbit hole of fairy tales as a prime solution in 2025 and beyond to instill young children with, the spiritual sustenance that can help them to navigate life in a way that promotes freedom. And after all these years, I've circled all the way back and I thought of this very special guest today who has been doing some work and research on stuff connected in a way to fairy tales. And what I mean is, when I look at fairy tale stuff and start researching fairy tales, it does link up with antiquity and perhaps human origins and the spirituality and so on and so forth of a time well before now. And that made me think of my dear guest, Francesco Sani, who is with us today. So, Francesco, please tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, sure. And hi, Gino. And first of all, thank you for having me on. And it's great to be here. Though I think it was a little bit later than 2019 when we met. Probably already the whole craziness of 2020 had already started, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's probably right.
But yeah, I've been putting out work and content since 2018, more or less. I did translations, documentaries at first, then I translated much of the work of Mark Passio into Italian, with Italian subtitles. And I've been trying to spread vital information for our freedom and our rights. So that's basically. I also started a podcast of my own, and so I've been translating myself also back into Italian since most of the episodes are actually in English. And that's been that's what I've been doing so far. So thanks again for having invited me here.
You're welcome. It's good to have you on. And so, I've been going down this rabbit hole of, researching fairy tales, and in particular, looking at the symbols inside the fairy tales, the sequence of the symbols, and wondering how that really affects, especially young children, or families, and the family dynamic, if we have them around, like if we read them. And that's sort of the research that I've been doing lately. And when I look into fairy tales, reading books about, sort of something a bit like deeper or exploration or research on fairy tales, I often end up reading stuff about, questions about the origins of fairy tales. And some people say that really they go back to the origin of man, and so it made me start to question really, human origins, and something I haven't really looked into. I've recently started to scrape the surface, and there are obviously many, many theories out there. And I was just wondering, even though it's a very broad question, like what comes up with you in your mind if you think about human origins? What are your like? Do you have some sort of views on human origins? As a broad question.
Oh yeah, but I think it's very important. Like all your other questions about origins in general, and I think it's very important to probably our most important endeavor to go back into origins, and because we need to go back to, they bring us back to source, so to speak, to the thing we've been to the thing we've strayed from, so we sort of to the things that we turned our back on. And I'd say the main thing is what's really important, like the truth. I think that's the main thing that we strayed from as a species. But yeah, I'd say fairy tales are important because they contain some of that knowledge that was they were basically an attempt to preserve knowledge. There are also others, but definitely the symbolism or the allegories in fairy tales, some obviously have a moral value, which I think that's what you're covering a lot on your show. But they also preserve very important knowledge and symbolism that in order for it to be carried out into the future, as sort of as a countermeasure, if you will, for such knowledge to in case it got, let's say, lost or forgotten or threatened or something along those lines. So it's a mean to preserve it and carry it into the future, for hopefully the people who will still have eyes to see that and decode that. So I think that's probably the most important function of them. And so yes.
Yeah. I've always, when I've been looking at into fairy tales, to sort of at the symbolism and stuff, I've always thought of it a bit like, it's reminded me of tarot, like as if it was a tarot story. Instead of just one card, it's actually a sequence of symbols that may tell a story on different levels. And another thing I found interesting about fairy tales is I might attempt to sort of decode it, and then with an understanding of like the difference between right and wrong and sort of what natural law is, and that sort of thing, that kind of can be a guide, right? And
yeah, it's definitely. Oh yeah, sorry.
No, just and then I'll come up with something that really feels like it fits, like it feels like it works, like there are different symbols in the story that kind of associate with one another. And then I might look at someone else's work and they'll decode it and it'll be on a different level and that will still work too. Not to say that it's like fully subjective, but I just think they're I'm fascinated by how deep the stories can actually run. In the way like a tarot reading. Someone could read it at face value, or there'd be some more deeper messaging going on and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the tarot is a great example of a way to preserve sometimes even in complex, in a more complex form, to preserve past knowledge, so and carry it into the future. So you're right, and but yeah, fairy tales are in that way can be similar. I know you wanted to cover. I mean, I could give you an example of the. Or I don't know if I'm going too too far ahead, but there were some
No, go for it.
examples you had of fairy tales, but
Yeah, go for it.
yeah, no, I was thinking about that you wanted to ask me about the Snow White fairy tale, and that's quite important because it's related to the seven. It was a way to preserve the the knowledge of the seven, with the dwarfs, etc. And that's a very important subject, because we go way back in time with that one, and so the seven basically refers to it can refer to the what many people have probably heard this term, the Elohim. The Elohim means gods plural, and not God singular as we often hear it translated as God, but it's actually gods. But it's referred to the planets that were visible in ancient times, that were visible to the naked eye, plus the sun and the moon. So, however, the most important thing is it's the constellation of it's the circumpolar constellations, and their succession was sort of the timekeeping of in ancient times, originally. So like the ancients, especially most likely the ancient Egyptians, were at their origins were keeping time using the succession of the pole stars, basically. So that's why they venerated. I mean, in the northern hemisphere, they obviously had the North Star, which is a fixed point, so it was considered suitable for storing this sort of knowledge, because it was fixed and it was basically unmutable and most high. And obviously they noticed that periodically there were the succession of the various pole stars. So that was there was the whole cycle of succession of the pole stars. I mean, one pole star will be replaced by another in that position, and that was the constellation of the Little Bear, which is comprised by 7 stars. So I mean, without going too deep into it, even though we already kind of are, but so basically that's the importance of the 7, actually. So
Funnily enough, that was question number 7 of my question sheet.
Oh, so yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Hey,
yeah, I went quite far ahead because...
No, that's cool. So, you said the pole star. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we're talking the North Pole?
Yes. The
Yeah.
North Pole eventually became the North Pole, even though apparently they started venerating it in the south, the one in the southern hemisphere. So, however, I think it didn't have the same characteristics as the northern pole star. So when they moved into the north of the Nile Valley, they had a better way to recognize the direction, the orientation. So,
Yeah. So could we say, like,
but it was a shift from venerating it in the southern hemisphere into the northern hemisphere. So,
right?
and that has to do with it's a very big topic. It's a
Yeah.
huge topic, but of crucial importance, and that has to do with with cycles, and obviously cycles were important for man's survival. They had to do with agriculture,
Yes.
and so yeah, basically it's as I said, it's a kind of a huge topic. So.
And it was also done in the southern hemisphere, maybe obviously slightly different, but using stars, like say in the Pacific, for navigation from island to island and stuff like that. That's what I guess we kind of learned at school.
The brightness. The fact is that the brightness of the star and its position varies depending on which star is at the pole or nearest to indicating the pole. So
Yes.
in the southern hemisphere, there was and there is like it's let's say it's a little bit more. It's not as bright, and it's a little bit more like the northern star is obviously more like it's obviously brighter, and it can indicate the direction in more of a precise way rather than the southern pole stars or circumpolar constellations.
So like to kind of like really boil it down, could we say like we in antiquity we developed developed a connection with the stars and planets, but more so we sort of developed a spiritual or a soul kind of connection with the goings on of the stars and the planets. Something like that.
Yeah. We obviously needed to store that knowledge, and it's something that today it's difficult to comprehend because we are a different.
Right.
We reason in a very different way.
Yeah.
And we are more, way more literal, and
yes.
And there's been a sort of a schism in science between, let's say the seen and the unseen. So the empirical, the more empirical, and the unseen laws of nature.
Oh, right. I understand. I see
so
where
that will.
You go.
I mean, their science back then was based on. If you will, it was based on those observations. The observations of, cycles and how they related to. Also to nature, obviously, because there was those were crucial, as I said, for their survival. Agriculture. The main goal was, or one of the main goals was preserving this knowledge of cycles related to their agricultural developments, because they knew that agriculture gave them the possibility for growth. an evolution, because you weren't anymore in more sort of in a survival modality. You were, you could actually, stop and think and contemplate more. So that was there, that's what constituted the possibility to mentally evolve in a more, in more stable conditions, which were made possible by the development of agriculture, of agricultural science.
Do you think that there's some parts of the way we used to live with this knowledge that we're missing, that would be like, is what makes it important looking into this? Like, in terms of, like, we're missing some ingredients to freedom today.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I'm with you.
And
now.
I'd say the main thing is it's the care, and in particular the care for what really matters, which was, truth. I mentioned this in the beginning, but and I know this is debated so historically, and I mean we don't even get to this point probably in official history, but my understanding is that they really had care for truth, and they knew that they couldn't how do you say? Well, the term escapes me now in English, but they basically knew that they couldn't have the luxury to they couldn't afford to have dogmas. They knew the dangers of having dogmas, because they knew that could jeopardize their their life and their civilization ultimately. And today it's quite the contrary, actually, because truth it's very low on the scale of things that people care about. And many people say it doesn't even exist. Actually, it doesn't even exist objectively. So, and with the ancient mentality or mindset, they knew that truth was key for their survival. Nowadays, you sort of have to renounce the truth in order to survive. However, the thing is that we won't survive in the long term. We'll go in against truth, and that's what we're doing today. So I think the thing that we need to recuperate is definitely the care and deep understanding of why truth is important, and it's all that matters, actually.
Well, this is what got me so interested, is that my research on fairy tales and stuff made me start to understand that in antiquity, I'm not, obviously I'm not there yet with the ages, like whether it was the Bronze or the Iron Age, for what I've been looking at.
That's super debated and super controversial, and people are arguing and fighting over it. So, well, I think the most important thing, rather than fighting over the ages or the time periods, is realize what the culture was about.
Yeah.
And the various cultures were about in time.
That's what's intriguing to me. Yeah, that's such a good point. The thing that intrigues me is that, if some of these tales were written or, created back then, it also shows how inclusive they were of all people, like obviously including children as well. because fairy tales are great for young kids. And obviously if they created these stories, they made them with them in mind. So there was already a respect for young children, which we don't really have today in that regard. And so there's like that parallel there that got me interested in this topic. And I learned
not only their their own but the future generations. Actually, I think that's
yes,
the most important part. I know many cultures had that. The Native Americans with the 7 generations principle, and so that it was for progeny and posterity.
yes,
That's why they try to keep to keep this knowledge preserved. And today, as I said, we don't have the same mindset. We kind of struggle to wrap our mind around the way they were preserving these things. But for example, if you say to people they preserve knowledge in the stars, and they'll be like, and what the hell does that mean?
yeah.
But they had that, because that was one of the safest places, because it couldn't be destroyed. Basically, it couldn't get lost. So, and it was literally the most high that they could see. So, and then they used monuments, and then carried out into, as we said, allegory and symbol, and some of that ended up in fairy tales. So.
Yeah, it shows. Yeah, I guess just where I'm coming from is like my process has been reverse engineering it, in the sense that if you really care, right, you care about those around you as like a foundation to being able to care about. You have to have love in your heart and care to consider, like, what about the future generations? What about this? What about that? And obviously, what is clear is, well, what you're saying, right? That they were operating at a higher level in terms of like care for one another and care for humanity. And yeah, so that's why.
Yeah, truth itself, man. It's just we often talk about service to there's service to truth. That comes before service to self and service to others also. So I think that's the again the greatness, if you will, of those types of civilizations. They understood the level of importance of things, and they put the truth first. They regarded it as most high.
So then, could we just leave it at that, in the sense that, like, we can understand now that we should serve truth, and then I'm sort of playing devil's advocate here, right? We could just serve truth, and then, oh well, the past was the past, and it's all a bit of a mystery, but let's just serve truth today, and that's the best we can do. I won't bother reading, Churchwood, or I won't get into that. Like, I don't know. Is there?
No, I think it's we're not really going anywhere. We're not really going much of anywhere if we have that. If we leave it be, it's sort of it's a study that will need to be done sooner rather than later, and it's complex. As I said, it's controversial. But I think it's definitely an endeavor that we will have to tackle one way or another, because we have no we have no future if we don't know, or if we don't know our past in that sense, and what advanced civilizations that went way before us, and even way before probably what's considered the recognized mainstream history. So yeah, I think that's key, because without that we can't really understand the importance of what they their discoveries were in and so yeah, that's what I think.
So that makes me think of the ancestral cult, in the sense that we don't really venerate our ancestors as we used to. And the ancestral cult, like veneration of ancestors, is one thing that pretty much all of humanity has had in common. I don't know, like, I don't know what's the point of my question. Like, in a way, like, looking at our origins is kind of venerating our ancestors, in a sense. Anyway, do you have sort of an opinion on where I'm going with that? Like, is this sort of like?
Yeah, I think I understand where you're going, and yeah, I think we don't. One of the things we don't recognize anymore, it's the importance to keep a link to the to our past, literally. So that's probably what the veneration of ancestry was about. So yeah, I think that's another important element.
Yeah, I'd like to think that sort of like looking into this stuff is kind of reviving that respect for where we came from, which,
Yes,
I guess I'm just sort of using synonyms, really. But yeah, like, I've just been interested. I land at the ancestral cult, or the topic of the ancestral cult, sometimes when I look into these things. Basically, I don't know if you know Varg Vikernes. I don't know if I was saying his last name correct, but he was in a black metal band in the 90s called, oh god, Burzum. I think he's still an artist, Burzum, but he was involved in that Norwegian sort of gang that were going around burning down churches and stuff. I'm kind of butchering the what actually went on with all of that, but the black metal scene in Norway in the 90s, or in Scandinavia. Anyway, he does some work on fairy tale symbolism. So I just found out about him through looking for fairy tales, but he connects a lot of these old stories to obviously antiquity, but
does he still burn churches?
No, but I guess what I'm saying is, I think he would if he could. Yeah. But I guess where he's coming from is Indo-Europe was doing fine until Christianity came along and kind of hijacked the astrotheology and incorporated it into the Abrahamic religions. Well, that's where he was coming from. But just going back to the fairy tales, is he observes and looks into the ancestral cult, and he finds connections in the symbols in the fairy tales to teachings of the ancestral cult, being really just a veneration of our life as reincarnation, that we are our ancestors, we are connected to our ancestors, We came from antiquity, and just this sort of respect for where we came from, and also as kind of like a unifier of humanity, that everybody used to do that at some point. I think except for, well, this is sort of above my pay grade at the moment, but like except for maybe some regions of, I think except for sub-Saharan Africa, but generally, everyone venerated their ancestors. So anyway, I'm just saying that's just where I sort of brought up the ancestral cult thing.
But well, it is true that Christianity absorbed many of the, so-called, what they sort of negatively called, pagan, rites and things of that sort. They reabsorbed them, so I sort of incorporated them into their religion if they couldn't completely eradicate them. Yeah. However, one thing about, because I know religion is sort of a hot topic, but it's not good to. Many people would like to do away with it, but it's not good to do away with it. And I think especially nowadays, especially the Christian religion, because I think it's the as you said before, if you reverse engineer it, I think it's one way. It's one very important link to the origins of religion, and so to our origins. So we gotta be careful of all this sort of Bible burning and religion, eradicating religion sort of thing. That many people have, including anarchists, or at least the more the majority of anarchists have about destroying, eliminating religions.
Yes.
And I think that would be a big mistake, because then we lose our link to decoding the past and going back. I like what you said about reverse engineering, because it's the term I use myself to sort of describe the importance of religions, especially the monotheistic religions, and maybe Christianity, most of all, probably the Christian religion. I mean, they have obviously they're dogmatic, so we need to find our way around the dogmas and get to the to the truth they contain. Obviously, there are also moral truths, but also the way we can go back to their origins. I actually did a whole show on origins of religions with Douglas Martin. That's on that's on my on my channels. I think it was pretty interesting, even though, as you probably can guess, it was quite it was a complex topic. But
yeah, it sounds. Yeah, I mean, it's heavy. Sounds heavy. I'll put in the link. I'll put the link in the notes below when I publish this. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that could be interesting to to sort of start to understand the point. Some of the points that we are discussing, even on this show.
Yeah, I guess there's definitely ways to trip up on finding out what things are really about. I went to, many years ago, Julia and I we stopped in San Francisco, and we went into, I don't know if it was an anarchist shop, but it was kind of like a punk rock sort of store with this sort of community ethos, and there were t-shirts and records and books, a lot of anarchist books. I think in hindsight a lot of it was anarchy, registered trademark. So yeah, and we found this we found this pamphlet. It was just a booklet, and it was about astrotheology, or the origins of the Abrahamic religions, and it wasn't very much. I tried to find it, I couldn't find it, but it was just like, it's just something that I still remember. Anyway, it was just, I don't think there was anything wrong in it. It was just like, it's funny how esoterica, like it goes sort of so really deep. Like, so the exoteric, like the surface is really, really thin, and then you scratch under, and that next surface is also really, really thin. In the sense that you could read that pamphlet as a supporting argument for atheism, that, hey, this is just some bullshit that was taken from some other bullshit. The end, therefore, there is no God, there is no spirit, there is only LGBT. But yeah, so like I can see how like it's like not co-opted, but when I read that, it was like, it was sustaining. Like I felt like I got a lot out of it, right? And at the time, it did sort of reinforce this idea of, well, atheism to me at that time. Yeah. So that was just a little comment I wanted to throw in
that
there.
probably, something that was, I guess, probably could be used to support an atheistic worldview.
Yeah, like you said, like
which
the
is
Bible
obviously very very dangerous worldview, because we know where that leads to materialism and moral relativism, and all the horrors that come with that, the tyranny that comes with that, and that we have proof now in our current situation. But I mean, astrotheology is actually another quite important and big subject, and there are various aspects to it. And I'd say, first of all, that it's basically the correlation between religious veneration and the celestial bodies and their movements, and I think it's most known fundamentally for the the path of the sun through the various houses of and constellations of the zodiac. Yeah, the houses of the zodiac. So and that's important to understand. It also regards cycles and and the alternation of the seasons. Again, agriculture.
Yep.
Has to do with agriculture again, and but it comes from that's a solar aspect. So we started talking about the stellar, the stellar culture, or the stellar cult. They had the they users, they basically venerated into the stars, and they use that to as a time as their timekeeping method to measure epochs and and those those sort of things. And then apparently the evolution was stellar lunar, because then they were based on lunar cycles and on the moon. And then we got to the solar period, which apparently is the one that we are in today, sort of a later advanced solar phase, which was the veneration of the sun, like using the sun to to determine the various, the cycles of time. So, and while that constituted an evolution of timekeeping, obviously, because keeping, stellar. If we talk about stellar time or epochs, based on that, we are looking at a very wide and lengthy periods of time that go over thousands of years. So obviously, as they evolved, they try to to put a more precise point on timekeeping. So we went with the with solar cycles, which means the day, the solar year, etc. So we have a more precise and observable and shorter periods of time that we have to deal with. So, however, but I'd say again, don't want to go too far ahead again, but the problem with that was that the past knowledge, much of that past knowledge was lost. So a connection to to their purer forms was lost, and that if I if you will, long story short, if you will, that led to losing basically the material, more materialistic worldview, and and more worship of man as as the basically as a divinity, and man's law, and all that. So that led to trouble, let's say, to put it simply, simply put. Yeah.
What's your?
However, yeah, talking about astrotheology and the zodiac, that's the the observation of the movements of celestial bodies related to religious veneration, and so that's obviously linked with Christianity, because obviously it's the you have the whole allegory of like Jesus, the Son of God, and died on the cross and then resurrected, and it's basically the path of the Son. I know many people try to debunk this, but it's kind of, if you ask me, and I know you want to ask me what I think on this show, and if you ask me, it's pretty self-evident that that's what it represents.
Yes, yeah, and also people tend to react to that in like say someone says that, doesn't necessarily mean that they're a Bible bashing Christian, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that. But you're right, I think it is self-evident. But that doesn't mean that I pitch my flag on Abrahamic Christianity and everyone else should be killed. Which seemed to be a response
that doesn't negate obviously the spirituality and or the Christian or the teachings of attributed to Jesus in the New Testament. So that doesn't negate all that.
And that's one of the things that I really respect about this topic and this pursuit, is that you're kind of forced to open your mind. You have to have an open mind going in, and because you're going to trip yourself up if you stay in ego and take everything so hyper. Like there is like crossover and there is sort of blending and all that sort of thing. And it's good for the mind to open that up a little bit and not be so judgmental of every little factoid that comes up. So that's one of the things.
There's a lot of crossover and overlapping. Obviously, about all this, in all these myths from and in the mythos through the different phases. So
I think some people
definitely it can be a I mean, it is quite complex.
Yeah, I mean, some people just couldn't do it.
Complex
Like,
topic.
couldn't consider it. Their brain would explode because they're so tribal in what they believe. They can't. They can't.
Yeah, there are a
break
lot
out
of
it.
dialectics and religion versus like, I mean, dogmatic religion versus
Yes.
the other dogmatic religion, which is the atheist worldview, or the or man's law, the man's law paradigm, I guess.
Yeah. One question I had when you're talking about astrotheology is like, so what are your thoughts on, well, just, yeah, generally just like, there's obviously like, there is something dogmatic about people, right? Humans are, there's something dogmatic about us, but more than that, like if we put that to the side and just say there's something spiritual, like where do we sort of project that aspect of ourselves, in the sense that, like, I guess when you're talking about astrotheology, I was just thinking of like astrology, just straight up astrology. Like, what are your thoughts on astrology? Like, is astrology kind of like our best effort at trying to, venerate the stars and the moon and the sun? Is there, or is it just all a complete, like, or is there some middle ground there? Do you have any thoughts on, just astrology, like 2025, zodiac?
I think it's one of those things that that have been good to bring forward bring into the future, bring this knowledge into the future. Kind of like the tarot. So they had aspects, because even if they had aspects of how can you say, like charlatanry, if like charlatans have been use them to predict your future, or exactly the way it's gonna go to you, and to however, it still served the purpose to preserve to preserve knowledge. So like even people, even if it was used in a wrong way by charlatans, they still actually served some sort of purpose. So that's what I think.
I understand. Like, there's some truth inside, and retaining truth is important because it's the thing that leads us to really more truth, or triggers us to, it feeds that part of ourselves, and that allows that part of
it preserves it. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't let it be completely lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to just a simple practice is just observe the moon. Just keep an eye on, like it's a full moon now. And there's something about that is like it scratches an itch, some dogmatic itch in me. Like it's like some kind of, in my mind, it's some kind of like spiritual nourishment, just like following the moon. And I'm just talking like, oh right, it's a full moon at the moment. Just every other day, just check where we're at with the moon, and obviously looking at the moon. And then reading a bit about like how that might affect people. I think there's something in it that's nourishing and also kind of harmless, right? Not trying to sell trying to sell anything to anybody or anything like that on that. Like, is there like, so we're doing this interview here. Is there like a question that, like, when you do these interviews, you kind of wish people would ask you? Like, is there something, like, even off topic, just anything? Like, is there something you want people to hear, or something you want me to know? Is there something you wish you could just talk about for a moment? Well, now's your chance.
Well, I mean, we covered, or attempted to cover some big topics there. So, I would, right at the moment, really, there's kind of nothing comes to mind as far as another unrelated question.
Well, that's good. That's good.
To be honest, because no, maybe I wanted to add something about the astrology thing that obviously can help you understand, the zodiac and the symbolism thereof. So you basically, I'm as far as understanding, the path of the sun, which represents also the hero's journey. So that's another interesting aspect of it, and that's what many religions sort of, or many traditions and myths sort of represent. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And
yeah, so that's, I get it. Where I feel like that's good in the sense that this conversation was like really on track. I feel like I'm on track figuring out this whole fairy tale conundrum. Do you have like a closing statement, like, for today?
Well, I guess, that's I wanted to state again that these are very crucial topics, and obviously we need we have the understanding of natural law and objective morality. Obviously, it's going to be our guiding light when we when we're gonna tackle this when we're gonna go into this area, the area of origins and ancient civilizations, and what they were, sort of what their purpose was, and what they were trying to to do for for them, to evolve their civilization, and to and what they were doing for posterity also, because obviously, as you said, and as you said before also, they had posterity in mind. Definitely they had the care for people who would come after them, and they didn't have they had no idea what was gonna be like. However, they still did try to communicate them, the more what they discovered were the most important things. So,
Francesco, thank you so much for sharing your views on this. Things are a lot clearer for me now. I do appreciate that. I really do. And I'm going to keep going with my my fairy tale decoding and that sort of thing. And I just hope that, more people start to look into this. I'm inspired too. So I appreciate it. And if you'd like to, maybe share links of your work, where can we check out more of your work?
Well, okay, but yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, and yeah, it was great to be here, and I also wanted to add another thing that I'm obviously let's say more of a I'm still kind of a student of these sort of things, so my understanding needs to I want to say that I'm not so much a teacher of these things, but I'm more on the student side of it. So it's gonna be a long process, and it's an ongoing process. So
Yeah.
I wanted to say that, and yeah, I've got a website that's called Monarchia Interiore, .com or .wordpress.com. So that's what that's where I have my material, which is at this point most of it is in English, so I think people would be able to understand it. But I think that's it basically. That's pretty much it for me. So
Awesome, and I'll post those links down in the notes when I publish this. And yeah, man, awesome. And we'll have to do this again soon when I've got more questions. Thanks so much.
all right, yeah. If I'm able to help, I'd be glad to do it. So
Awesome.
thank you.